Now, presenting the brave soul who faced the darkest night, inviting you to join her on a transformative journey through the depths of despair and emerging on the other side with a strengthened spirit, the author of God Prince, Jenny Levitt, introducing a special feature, a series of podcasts where our creator shares her story in different episodes.
Hi, friends. If you're seeking hope, healing, and a deeper understanding of how to develop resilience, we invite you to watch the whole episode. Join us as we share our family's unfiltered account of finding a faithful God and seeing our faith strengthened even through life's darkest moments.
To be strong. And then that comes back to that foundation in Christ. If you have that foundation, then no matter how you're feeling, you can walk through it and you cannot leave anyone behind.
So,
that's the goal, you know?
Mm-hmm. So when you just talked about being strong, though, that family that we met earlier this year that lost a child, there are 2 other children still left in the home.
Yep.
And so one of the questions the mom asked me was like, how do I help my surviving children? Because I'm so overwhelmed, I don't even feel like getting out of bed some days, but I have to help get them to school.
Mm-hmm.
And the surviving children, one's a boy, one's a girl, so they're already grieving totally differently.
Yeah.
One was ready to gung-ho for Christmas, the other one didn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Like there's such an extreme difference too, and then she's grieving on top of it, so she's like, how do I help them? And then
pray with them.
And then she
That's
also was like, I'm trying not to let them see me grieve because I'm trying to be strong.
See, and I think that is a total wrong position, because you think...
So then maybe explain what you meant when you said that they need to be strong. Like there's got to be that balance, right?
So do you know, what I wish I would have seen Dad actually cry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a shot at him. I know that,
right.
But I wish that I could have seen Dad cry.
Because it was giving you permission that it was okay.
This whole big thing.
Right.
But even just to see him have that moment of just complete honesty, and then I would have loved for us to pray together, where you guys are honestly just talking to God, because sometimes you feel like if you're asking God those questions, which I got to that point, because I mean, with God, I have always been like just honest with Him.
Yeah.
Like sometimes probably too much, because God already knows, but
He wants us to recognize where we're at.
Yes, But so just to have that kind of relationship with your parents, I think that would be great for kids. To see you honestly wrestle with these things with God. Like, God, I don't understand why this had to happen. Mm-hmm. And I kind of do blame you for this. Because they're probably feeling the same way, or they will have to deal with that, but then bring it back around. But even through all of this, I am, choosing to believe in you for the best and trusting you. Yeah. And so if you can model that to your kids, I think that would be very, very helpful for all of those situations, because you are modeling that you don't have to always say the, religiously right, thing to God,
very
because
true.
Like you're
or
with God.
To each other.
Yeah, because you're still questioning God. Like I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why him, why right now, why this whole situation. But in the midst of that, I want to believe in you and trust you. So I am trying to. Yeah. Because at the beginning, that's all that you're really doing, is just attempting to trust God in the midst of whatever's going on.
So part of what I hear you saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that sometimes all of our children want is to see us be real, but then also to just listen and not try to fix them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, yep. and I honestly, I think that probably goes with a lot of areas of life. People just want to be heard and accepted for who they are, and not necessarily always try to be dialed in and fixed.
Yeah.
Sometimes God is the only one that can do the fixing. We just need to know that other people are there and love us and accept us as we are.
I will bring the balance too, that you can bring correction, or maybe correction.
Guidance.
Yes, guidance from the Bible, because
Yeah.
as the throw start, but you can do it in a gracious way.
Mm-hmm.
And so to say, like, hey, I know that you're going through stuff, but you cannot speak that right now. And even then, I think that is one thing that Dad did do, is Dad was like, we are not going to speak, doubt and unbelief. You can have those doubts, but we cannot speak that and then let that become our family's direction.
Right.
And so we can voice these things, but then at the end of it, we need to close this off in prayer, and we need to bind those things, and we need to lose, hope and joy and peace in this house.
Yeah.
And all of that. And so that, because if you just let anything be spoken, then that will be, then you become that, wherever you're speaking. And so you can have all of these things going through your mind and then discussing them, but you have to bring it back to the Bible, to the truth, and then to guidance based upon that.
So there's a verse that says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think of the Old Testament Jacob, who our Jacob was named after, and how he had that wrestling moment with God where he wrestled all night with God, and God touched him and changed him in such a dramatic way that that's actually when God gave him the new name of Israel, from that wrestling moment. And there are times when people are wrestling through grief or even just deep questions of life, maybe whatever it is that you're going through, and you're wrestling through those with God. If you keep trying to work out that in a good, healthy way, in a conversation with God and maybe some trusted people, you will come out the other side stronger in your faith and with a better understanding of God's grace and mercy, if you'll take those questions and those wrestlings, deep wrestlings, to the right place for answers. So back to what we were talking about before. So with the move down to Stanford, that's where Myron and I live now, where we're pastoring, down in North Orlando, basically. When we first moved down there, and I talk about this some in the book and on my website as well, that, I was super excited, gung-ho, and rightfully so. God was using our lives for something good. We knew that God wasn't done with our lives. Yeah. What I was not prepared for, because I had not realized what a blessing the support was that we received from our local church body in the Jacksonville area where the church happened. They were such a blessing, supporting us, rallying around our family, and until we moved away from that. And it's only a 2-hour drive, but those first several months when we moved down there, I was like, oh my gosh, we are all alone. And here's what's the amazing part, you hit on perception. So this is where perceptions can be a funny thing, because here you were thinking that we'd moved on, you needed to be strong because we're down there, we're doing ministry, and here I was like, oh my gosh, what did we just do? I just cut myself off from all the support that we had in place since this accident. I was already so concerned about, leaving you, even though you're a grown man. Yeah. And you had prayed about it, and I really do believe that God wanted you to stay up here. God's done some good things in your life, and I knew at some point there was going to have to come, time of separation. But it was really, really hard, that loneliness. I felt very isolated. We didn't know anybody down there. Out of our fellowship of churches, we were the only ones in that area at the time. Now, just fast forward several years, now your dad and I are like the grandparents of Central Florida. There are other fellowship churches, but we're the oldest ones down there. And, so God has been faithful and worked through, but that was a rough season, that season of isolation and just that intense loneliness. And then you and I have talked about what the effects of a worldwide pandemic did to people. Yep. And as hard as it was for us as believers to go through that, people who were not believers and went through that in that isolation, how difficult that was. So considering all of that, I'm thinking of one family in particular that we know that lost a child, that their surviving child jumped into a romantic relationship far too quickly. And it wound up being with an unbeliever and did some lasting damage, you know, so that's always a fact. One of the things that I think, we've talked about this before, that makes us more compassionate to people who are grieving is it's those times when it's super easy to turn to unhealthy things. Like, I'm not excusing alcohol or drugs or anything like that, but I have more compassion for people, I think, because they're so lonely, so in pain, whatever, and it numbs it. The problem is the numbness wears off. And then they're still left. Now they're left with the pain and the guilt from doing something that
shame because there's something wrong.
You know,
so it just magnifies it.
It does.
You know?
It just magnifies it. And even without a worldwide pandemic, social media, people get in the comparison game, and you can,
which most of that's fake anyway.
Because
so
they've airbrushed it, because they've done
that
filters.
She looks in real life is not the way that she looks online. So
and
or he.
And they just post the highlights. They're not posting how every day they have to drag themselves out of bed. You know, they're not posting that part. So you're comparing yourself to something that's totally unachievable. But one of the things that I've told people, it's so simple, because I've had some people ask me, you know, like, how do you work through that? It's so simple, yet it's so hard, is that Jesus told us the greatest thing is to love him first and then to love others. So when we just do that first simple thing, and sometimes when you have gotten in such a funk because you're lonely or whatever it is that you're going through in life, even that can seem overwhelming, you know, putting him first. So just doing the one simple step. When Jacob was here with us and we were doing Weight Watchers, one of the things that they do is they just say one simple change. Just focus on one thing. And sometimes that's the same way with loving God, is what is that first step that you can do to just put that relationship right first. So what else would you say to somebody who's maybe really feeling the effects of any of those scenarios, but especially the isolation or the distance from, they don't feel like they have deep relationships with anybody? You know, what would you say to that?
Well, so, you know, working with some people like that over the years, I think that what I have learned is that they have to get to the root of why are you like that. You know, and so, but that really makes you have to dig in, you know, deep, and maybe look at some parts of yourself that you don't like, or that maybe aren't going to make you feel good. But you have to figure out, okay, so have I always been like this? And normally the answer is no. Normally the answer is there was a cause to this. Okay, and so what about that? Whether that's loss of somebody, whether that is a violation, whether that is simply that you just felt overwhelmed with life or whatever, and you just kind of isolated, you know, from life and from others. Whatever that cause was, you have to identify